Good evening, Scotland. Good evening, social media land. I hope you're well. It is Friday, the spooky 13th of December 2024. Welcome to Saorsa Live. We're streaming across, not Facebook tonight, it's just YouTube and TikTok. So please do take the time to like and share across these platforms and say hello in the comments too. It's very important. If we lose the live stream for any reason, head to the other platform where we're broadcasting and continue to participate in the chat. We're also recording this live and all the comments as well to ensure the security and integrity of the stream. How are yous? It's been a week of revelations since I found that whole thing. I'm just going to get straight into it tonight because there's a lot to get through, a lot to unpack, a lot to discuss, a lot of stuff to get on with it. But so last week, at round about the end of last week's live, maybe Thursday, Friday time, after I put it all together, I got passed by a friend of mine within the independence movement. This image, it's a newspaper cutting. 1 second, let me bring it up. There we go. You won't be able to read it just now because it's very much sort of like bad quality on the little screens. But if you do go to the Saorsa Facebook page, is a high definition version and you can read it all. And basically, in a nutshell, it's basically talking about how the Treasury hid the cash benefits if Scotland did split from the UK. This was way back in the 1970s. It talks about memos between civil servants going to politicians and things like that. But the most important thing that I found after reading that part was this little bit. It says the papers, as in the documents and the memos and things, are to form the basis for a BBC Radio 4 documentary tonight at 8 p.m. Now, that was a way back in 2006. Let's look at that part again. Now, right at the very top of, you won't be able to, I can't point at it, that little newspaper clipping, somebody's actually written in there the 30th of January 2006. So I went on a bit of an adventure to try and find what this documentary was. So I basically did stupid amounts of searching, eventually found the name of the journalist that put it together, eventually found the actual name of the documentary series. It's called Document. And would you believe, when you go to the Radio 4 archive, you can't watch it, you can't listen to it. It wasn't available just to click on and listen to. In fact, all the documentaries for Document were for 2006 were not available. Things were 2005 and 2007, yeah, but not 2006. This was like really, really, really weird for me, right? So I got frustrated. I went away, had a coffee, and then considered, there must be a record of it. There must be a public record somewhere of this. So I went further and I discovered that the whole series has been put together in an audio book. And, well, I bought it. Okay, I had to have it. I had to hear what this, we'll call it a podcast because that's kind of what it really is, right? I had to hear it. I had to hear it for myself, listen to it for myself. And I was blown away. Dennis Healey admitting it, interview with a civil servant admitting all this. It is just ridiculous. Utterly ridiculous. Anyway, I got it, downloaded it, cut it up, and it was the basis for the content of the 4 videos Monday through to Thursday this week. And if you've had an opportunity to watch them, I've kind of taken the most important parts from it and then added a more up-to-date commentary from a Scottish independence activist's point of view. I think this is really important, guys. I really do. And tonight we're just going to basically concentrate on one of the civil servants and the Dennis Healey part. I'm going to do my commentary again for that and talk about that, let you listen to it, maybe go off on a rant a little bit, which is kind of what I do sometimes, as you know. So yeah, I think we'll just get on with that. What I do need to do is do a little bit of scene setting, which I'm going to do after I play the opening jingle, because as always, it's really important to send this message out to everybody so they know what they have to do. start our lives with an important reminder that we are fighting one of the world's greatest propaganda machines, the British state and their right-wing oligarch-run media. To combat this, we ask that you always follow, like and share, and comment positively across all social media platforms on any of your favourite Scottish independence creators and commentators. By doing this, you help to spread the word of our cause and manipulate social media algorithms to benefit our struggle. So please, for now, like and share this live stream, and if you haven't already, follow this account. Thank you. Okay, let's have a quick buzz round on TikTok land and YouTube land as well. There's a whole bunch of people across in Tutu land? Where did that come from? On YouTube land. YouTube land. Davey, Rumi, Henry, Kareem and Indie Dave, Robert's all there, Zen Bloke and John, Age of Aquarius. Listen guys, thank you very much. Listen, if you are watching on YouTube and you've not subscribed, hit subscribe. 5 minutes later, you'll be able to join in the conversation. You have to be a subscriber to be able to do that. Also, a massive, incredibly large thank you to the YouTube community. When we were talking about the YouTube community last week, we were sitting around about 724 subscribers. Now you have to remember, okay, I'm not a Mr. Beast person that gets millions of views, okay? If you see YouTube as an entire ocean, consider the Scottish independence movement a thimble of water in that ocean, and then if you dip a needle in that little thimble, a drip of water that comes out, that's who Saorsa is. So the fact that we've gone from around about 720 to 930 subscribers in a week, that's like 200 in a week. I've got to thank everybody in the YouTube community for sharing, everybody within the Saorsa team for sharing and liking and doing the thing to promote the message. It's so very important, and I'm genuinely grateful for you guys doing it. It means so much to me, which is good. Right, so let's have a quick look across here as well in TikTok land. Hi, non-Scott. Can't decide whether or not are you pro-independence or not, my friend? I think that you are. I don't know. There we go. And I saw Kareem across there and a few other folk as well that we hang out with. I just want to say as well that TikTok land, you're getting beaten once again by YouTube land. We have almost 30 people across watching there. Now that might not be a lot, but like I said, little pin drop in the grand ocean of things. Right, right, there you go. You designed the people assemble. I know exactly what you're talking about there, Anon, bro. Brilliant. Thank you very much. We should have a chat about other things as well. Okay. Brilliant. I want to know just one wee question. Why can't we invite people to manipulate algorithms? Be able to turn around and like and share and positively comment. That's just doing what people do. Algorithms kind of like that stuff as well, which is good. Anyway, we'll come back to having that conversation later on, which will be good. Right, okay, so a little bit of scene setting. Okay, the 1970s were a period of profound turmoil for the United Kingdom. Inflation soared to unprecedented levels. Industrial unrest brought the nation to a standstill, and the government teetered on the brink of economic collapse. Amid this crisis, the discovery of North Sea oil emerged as a potential saviour resource so vast it could stabilise the UK's finances and avert disaster. For Scotland, it represented something even greater, the possibility of economic transformation and independence. Yet, instead of empowering Scotland to harness this wealth, Westminster conspired to suppress it. Senior civil servants, including David Walker, who's we're going to basically home in on tonight, orchestrated a campaign to delay devolution and maintain control over Scotland's resources. Meanwhile, Chancellor Dennis Healey openly admitted that Scottish oil was critical to the UK's survival, even as he praised the complicity of Scottish Labour MPs who worked to undermine the nationalist sentiment. This is not a story of mere mismanagement of oversight, it's one of deliberate suppression. Through secrecy, manipulation and betrayal, Westminster ensured that Scotland's wealth was siphoned away to stabilise the UK, while Scots were left unaware of the true value of their resources. Tonight you're going to hear for yourself one of David Walker's memos, Dennis Healey showing no empathy regarding the theft of Scotland's wealth, and then we're going to hear David Walker himself as he is asked about his memo.
My name is Kareem and I want to build a better Scotland by progress with a well-being economy so everyone in our land can live in dignity and security. What would you do to build a better Scotland?
So that was Kareem, one of our Saorsa folk. I got a lot of the Saorsa folk to do jingles like that for how they felt they would like to build a better Scotland. And we could have built a better Scotland if we'd known about our wealth and we'd taken action back then. But let's get on with the show and talk about the conspiracy to suppress Scotland's wealth. So beneath the waters of the North Sea lay oil reserves so vast that they could have reshaped the nation's economic future. These resources promised an opportunity to transform Scotland to one of the most prosperous nations in Europe, a nation no longer tethered to Westminster but thriving on its own terms. But this potential was never realised. Westminster, facing its own crises, deliberately suppressed Scotland's opportunity to harness its wealth, ensuring it would serve the UK's survival rather than Scotland's success. This was no accident. Documents uncovered decades later through the Freedom of Information request back in 2006 reveal a calculated conspiracy to keep the truth from the Scottish people. Written by senior UK civil servants and MPs, these memos outline the deliberate effort to downplay the full potential of Scotland's oil, the North Sea oil. It was not just about managing expectations, it was about maintaining control over Scotland's resources while ensuring its people remained in the dark. The memos show Westminster understood transformative power of North Sea oil. They acknowledged that under international law, the majority of the oil fields lay in Scottish waters. If this fact had been widely publicised, it would have destroyed the long-standing narrative that Scotland was financially dependent on the Union. For decades, Westminster relied on this false portrayal of Scotland as economically weak, reliant on subsidies from London. But the truth was starkly different, and the discovery of oil threatened to expose it. Treasury officials privately warned that oil revenues would allow Scotland to generate a surplus far beyond its needs. This newfound wealth would have created an economy capable of standing independently from Westminster, in competition with Westminster, leaving the UK weakened and struggling without its share of Scotland's resources. In confidential discussions, officials even compared Scotland's potential to Norway, a nation that was already leveraging its oil wealth to invest in infrastructure, social programmes and a sovereign wealth fund for future generations. Westminster could not allow this narrative to gain any traction. Publicly, the government projected figures that severely underestimated the scale of Scotland's oil reserves, releasing estimates that were in a fraction of the true amounts. Privately, they admitted that the revenues were at least 4 times higher, if not more, than they were willing to disclose. This manipulation of information was not about safeguarding the economy. It was about preserving power. Scotland that controlled its oil wealth was not just a financial threat, it was a political threat. An independent Scotland empowered by its resources could no longer be kept subordinate within the Union. The actions of Westminster in the 1970s were not just of a portrayal of Scotland's economic future, they were an assault on democracy itself. By deliberately withholding vital information, they denied the Scots the ability to make informed decisions about their own destiny. Democracy relies on transparency and accountability, yet Westminster's actions were anything but transparent. Scots were fed a narrative of dependence, one that painted the Union as their only lifeline, while their wealth was siphoned off to stabilise the UK's struggling economy. The strategy reveals a deeper truth about the Union. Scotland was not treated as an equal partner, but as a resource to be exploited. Westminster's fear of losing control over Scotland's wealth drove their actions. The tactics deployed in the 70s were not the actions of a government working in good faith. They were the actions of a regime desperate to maintain dominance at all costs. David Walker was a senior Treasury official whose correspondence reveals the inner workings of this conspiracy. His words and later justifications, which you'll hear, offer a stark insight to how far Westminster was willing to suppress Scotland's potential. I'm going to play the first one for you now.
On the 23rd of April 1975, David Walker at the Treasury wrote to a Mr. Buckley and copied his letter to Peter Mountfield. It was marked confidential and titled Scottish Devolution, External Financing Aspects.
The new Assembly would doubtless be able to interfere with UK programmes, for example, oil exploration, in a variety of ways, by withholding cooperation over onshore support. The Assembly would give focus and public vent to the aim of separatists in a hearing which they do not and cannot enjoy at present as a still small minority party. If this pessimistic view is validated, external creditors of the UK could very quickly start to take fright. If there is a moral from all this, it is that progress toward devolution should be delayed for as long as possible, consistently with honouring the government's commitment to move down the devolution road and containing the SNP lobby in Parliament. The longer this can be played, the better.
David Walker, right? He is Sir David Walker now, right? Wow. Okay, former chairman of Morgan Stanley offices in Canary Wharf. Now, was Canary Wharf not built with Scottish oil money? And I wonder, just wonder, how much money Morgan Stanley made, maybe with investments into Scottish oil. Huh? There's a bit of a double standard there. Anyway, his actions as senior Treasury official in the 1970s played a pivotal role in shaping how Scotland's wealth was managed, or rather suppressed. Tasked with overseeing the UK's external finances during one of the most turbulent economic periods in modern history, Walker was at the heart of Westminster's strategy to stabilise the UK economy. His memos reveal a deeply cynical approach to Scotland's resources, treating them not as an asset for the Scottish people, but as a critical lifeline for the UK. Walker's memos from this era exposed the raw anxiety within Westminster about the discovery of North Sea oil. He was blunt in his assessments. Without revenues from Scottish oil, the UK economy would face severe consequences. Foreign creditors, countries like Saudi Arabia and Iran, they were a creditor of the UK back then. That's crazy. Anyway, they placed their confidence in the UK largely because of the promise of these oil revenues. Without them, the UK balance of payments would collapse, and it was already fragile. The economic stability would be in ruins if Scotland took over its own oil. His concern extended beyond economics. His memos, Walker warned that even if limited devolution could embolden a separatist movement in Scotland, that perhaps they would lose control of the oil. He feared that a Scottish Assembly, no matter how constrained within its powers, would provide a platform for nationalist voices, allowing them to amplify their message and challenge Westminster's control. This was not just an economic issue, it was by far a political one for them. Walker saw devolution as a potential gateway to independence, and his solution was clear: delay devolution for as long as possible. One particularly damning memo recommended that progress towards devolution should be deliberately stalled, even as the government publicly committed to the process. He argued that prolonging the timeline would prevent separatist movements from gaining traction while ensuring Westminster maintained control over Scotland's resources. This was not advice aimed at fostering democratic dialogue or addressing Scotland's needs at all. It was calculated strategy to suppress our aspirations. Decades later, in a rare interview, Walker defended his actions with the same blunt pragmatism. I'm going to play the first part of the interview now, and then we'll come back, have a wee chat, and play the second part, and we'll see what happens, see what you think. Here we go.
After ringing around a little, I discovered that Mr. Walker, now Sir David Walker, has just retired as chairman of Morgan Stanley Incorporated. I sent him a copy of his memo from back in the 1970s and asked if he'd like to comment further. He agreed, and so I headed for his offices in Canary Wharf.
Hello.
Sir David, pleased to meet you.
Very nice
Mike
to see you.
Thompson from
Very good to see you. For me, it was an exclusively economic question. I had no interest, nor indeed proper role to play in relation to devolution. The government had given a commitment about its intention to go some way down that path. My concern, given my responsibilities for the, let's call it, external balance sheet of the United Kingdom, was to advise the government on the implications of moving very fast down that course, and lenders to the United Kingdom really had very little on which to place reliance other than the early prospect of oil coming out of the North Sea. If that hope, basis for confidence, had been diluted, then I think the ways in which, in the event, the government and the Bank of England were able, by the skin of our teeth, if I can put it like that, to finance their way through that extraordinarily difficult phase for our economy, would have been, I think, put to an even more severe test.
Britain would have been in real trouble.
Yes.
Now, one of our interviewees, a Professor Neil McCormick, who was a leading light in the SNP at the time, has seen your memo, and he describes it as an abuse of the role of a civil servant, and an abuse which shows a cynicism about the democratic rights of the electorate in Scotland and everywhere else as well. How do you respond to that?
I totally disagree with him. I think it's a misjudgment, and it would have been quite inadequate, a failure on my part, not to draw attention to the potential consequences if the process moved in a way which undermined confidence in Her Majesty's government on the part of very significant existing foreign creditors who held sterling and prospective future creditors who were being asked, like the Saudi Arabians, like the Iranians, to lend dollars to the United Kingdom in an hour of very acute and severe difficulty, of which the intensity, I think, is frequently forgotten in the present day and age.
My name is David Walker, and I think Scotland doesn't deserve to be wealthy. We need to have all the oil. We need to have all control of the oil, otherwise we can't pay off our debts. We'll just make sure that Scotland pay them off, or at least think that they're too poor to do anything at all about it, and we'll keep doing that even after devolution. When I first heard that, right, okay, I swear to God, all right, my mind was blown. I says, there's a man, right, sitting in his office in Canary Wharf, a knight of the realm, okay, for whatever, talking about how shit Scotland is, and basically not thinking that it was the right thing to do to tell us about it. Does that not just scream conspiracy to suppress the Scots? Does that not, admission just not make you think, holy crap, why are we not independent? I mean, this whole interview, this documentary came out in 2006, you know, 8 years before a referendum. Why did we not uncover it back then? Why wasn't this all over? Hindsight is a great thing, but do you know something? Nah. It didn't come back then, but it's back now, and we can use this information to discuss the union's tactics to suppress us. way back in the 1970s, before even oil came ashore. It boggles my mind no ends about this at all. It really, really does. Let's have a quick round robin and look at the conversation that's going on. Wow! There's 28 people sitting now in YouTube land. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us across there. It's good to see you all. There's Ruth as well. Hiya, Ruth. And there's Wayne. There we go. Brilliant. William. Good. You guys carry on having an interesting conversation. Superb. And I have to say, YouTube land, you are totally destroying TikTok land. Okay, absolutely. TikTok land, you need to share it more. If you're wanting more people to come on, and if you think that YouTube are beating you. Okay, cool. What do you think of all this just now? I mean, how does this sit with you as Scottish people? If there's any, soft unionists here as well that want to join in the discussion, how does it make you feel that the wealth of your nation that could have provided you with a better infrastructure, better educations, better services, all that wealth was siphoned off and taken to prop up the balance of payments for the United Kingdom? It's mental. People go on about the deficit, the fiscal deficit that we have. I don't understand how another country spending money on our behalf on things that are not even in our country amounts to a deficit. Okay, I mean, even JERS talks about, like, what are they called again? Undisclosed, undefined, expenses. These are things for overseas operations of military, overseas spending, and stuff like that. It's not just what's spent in Scotland. If we were to spend everything in Scotland, 41 billion we got back last year, and basically 30 billion inside Scotland was spent on our behalf, but we sent 88.5 billion down to Westminster. I think we'd be okay. I think that if we had that as the baseline and started considering international investment, the ability to make our own trade policies, our own immigration policies, Scotland would be quite an attractive place for people to move to work within, to set up businesses. I think we would be okay. I think having a bit of vision about that would probably be the way to go. Julianne, sad, angry and robbed. That's how you feel. Yep, totally. Here we go. And Zen Bloke, I just want to say thank you for all your support, my friend. It's really, really important. As I said in the comments of the original videos this week, it boils your pee-pee. We should demand reparations. A body, so more capitalism. If that's what you think that I was saying, that's fine. If you think that's what we need, okay, that's really good. Great. Right, okay, let's get on with the next part of David Walker's interview. So, in that first part there, he his lack of accountability is as telling as the memos that he wrote himself. His refusal to acknowledge the ethical implications of his actions underscores the systemic disregard within Westminster for Scotland's democratic rights. His argument that suppressing Scotland's potential was a matter of national necessity highlights the lengths to which the Union would go to prioritise its own survival over Scotland's natural right to its natural resources. The ethical implications of Walker's memos are also staggering. As a civil servant, his duty was to provide impartial advice, yet his correspondence reveals a clear bias towards preserving the UK dominance. Maybe that's why he became a Knight of the Realm, eh? His actions weren't just about economics, they were about control, about ensuring Scotland remained subservient to Westminster, and this wasn't governments, this was definitely exploitation. His memos and his unapologetic stance decades later at the interview, exemplify the mindset of a Westminster that saw Scotland not as an equal partner, but as a resource to be managed. The suppression of Scotland's potential was just not just an economic strategy. It was a betrayal, utterly. I'll play his second part of his interview just now, and then we'll move on.
Whether or not there's agreement on my judgment and my advice at the time, I have absolutely no doubt that it was the responsibility of the person in the role that I had in overseas finance in the Treasury at the time to warn about the potential consequences of allowing a process which was fundamental constitutional change to the United Kingdom to get out of control.
Do you feel, looking back on it all, any sense of regret, any sense that you acted in a way that was inappropriate for a civil servant at this time?
Oh, none whatsoever. None whatsoever. I think the advice that I gave at the time in the event, I think, proved to be the right advice.
So you won't be offering any apologies to the people of Scotland?
None whatsoever.
No apologies. Doesn't think he's done anything wrong. I don't get it. You know? He admits right there and then that it was okay to do that. He would make the same decisions again. Frightening, truly frightening. Okay. I don't know. What do you think of this guy? What do you think of David Walker as a whole? Is it something that we should... Do you think the same sort of attitude permeates the civil service in Westminster and Whitehall? Do you think that the MPs down there are doing the same sort of thing? Are they exploiting Scotland? I don't think that the Scottish Labour MPs up here, the 37 of them that got into power, I don't think that they're pro-Scottish in any manner or form. I don't think they're pro-people, to be perfectly honest, with the way that they vote. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, there was a debate about Scotland's energy just recently in the House of Commons, and not one of the Scottish Labour MPs from Scotland up here attended that debate. That's very telling, isn't it? Very telling. Right, we're going to move on to a bit about Dennis Healey now, and that'll be the last sort of part of the podcast part of the recordings I'm playing you. I'm going to put the full podcast out next week for everybody to go and listen to, but you can still go back and watch the videos and get my commentary on them as well. So anyway, Dennis Healey, right? Admissions and the role of Scottish MPs. So he was a Chancellor of the Exchequer during this tumultuous time, and was the man at the centre of the UK government's financial strategy. He had a front row seat to the decisions and actions that prioritised the survival of Westminster over the autonomy of Scotland. Decades later, in an interview, Healey offered admissions that were as candid as they were damning, pulling back the curtain on Westminster's dependence on Scotland's resources and the complicit role of Scottish Labour MPs maintaining the Union's grip. This is about 3 minutes long. Listening to Dennis Healey here, his arrogance is unbelievable. Let's get this played for you.
I travelled to Sussex to meet Dennis, now Lord Healey, the man who had the unenviable job of balancing Britain's books in the mid-1970s.
It was very difficult because on top of the soaring price of oil, which was a major factor in our difficulties, we had terrible trouble with the unions, who were forcing up prices to a dangerous level, which damaged, of course, our trade with foreign countries and weakened our economy all round by increasing inflation.
And when you were sitting in the Chancery, you must have had some pretty black days, didn't you, at that point?
Yes, it was the most difficult period of my life, that.
And how bothered were you at the time about the possibility that if devolution came and thereby independence, the oil which could help Britain's economy in the future might be lost? I mean, how concerned were you?
Oh, I think we were very concerned about that, and it was a major factor. But we had a lot of extremely able and sensible, pragmatic Scottish MPs like Donald Dewar, George Robertson, John Smith, Helen Liddell, who kept the Scottish Labour Party very sensible and they remained ahead of the Scott Nats as long as we were in power.
There's some very interesting documents that we've come across here, which these are all by Treasury officials.
Yes.
Do you remember being given this advice?
Yes, I do, and it was perfectly sensible. The real tragedy for us would have been Scotland run by the Scott Nats, because they had no interest in the rest of Britain.
The accusation from the SNP, of course, is that the Labour Party was thinking more of England, Wales and Northern Ireland, and not so much of Scotland, because it needed Scottish oil to prop itself up.
Well, we did need Scottish oil, but we weren't thinking less of Scotland. For that very reason, we thought a great deal of Scotland. As I say, Scottish MPs played an absolutely major role in British policy at home and abroad.
Do you feel any sympathy for the view of some people in Scotland that they were kept in the dark about the true viability of an independent Scotland by a concerted policy coming out of London?
I understand it. I don't say I agree with it, and so to that extent I don't sympathise with it. But the plain fact is it was possible for intelligent Scots to work it all out for themselves and not to depend on the British civil service at all, if they wanted to. But the plain fact is that the bulk of Scots have not wanted independence. They wanted to remain part of the United Kingdom. And of course, on the political side, the Scots were such an important element in the Labour Party, in fact you could say they dominated it for many decades, that they didn't really need Scottish independence to make their mark. And leading Britain, of course, they made a much bigger mark than they would have done leading Scotland.
Honest to God, I'm going to take a quote from Zen Bloke here that boiled my piss completely and utterly, listening to Dennis Healey being such a twat about Scotland. He openly acknowledged that Scottish oil was essential to stabilising the UK economy during one of its most precarious periods. Without the revenues from North Sea, Britain's financial situation would have been catastrophic. Healey described the oil as Westminster's salvation, a resource that allowed the government to navigate crippling inflation, industrial strikes, and an economy on the brink of collapse. Yet instead of using this wealth to empower Scotland, it was redirected to shore up the UK's fragile finances by not telling us, by keeping our wealth from us, the knowledge, the discussion, the ability to have a national discussion about it. You know? It drives me bananas. Healey admitted that Westminster feared losing control of Scotland's oil. He said it was Scotland's oil. He admits that it was Scotland's oil. And they were terrified if the nationalist movement gained momentum and took control of it. The stakes were so high for them. If Scotland claimed its oil wealth, the balance of power within the Union would shift dramatically. An independent Scotland, fuelled by its resources, would no longer need Westminster. This threat drove a deliberate effort to suppress the truth and maintain control. One of the most striking aspects of Healey's interview was his praise for prominent Scottish Labour MPs who played a key role in keeping the SNP at bay. He specifically named Donald Dewar, George Robertson, John Smith and Helen Liddell, crediting them with ensuring Labour's dominance in Scotland. Just bring this picture up. I'm calling them Healey's house jocks. You know, they were hailed as defenders of the Union, but were fully aware of Scotland's economic potential. They knew the transformative power of the North Sea oil, but chose to align with Westminster's agenda rather than advocate for their constituents. This raised profound questions about their legacy, in my opinion. While these MPs are often celebrated for their contributions to Scottish and UK politics, their complicity in suppressing Scotland's potential cannot be ignored. By working to maintain the Union's control over Scotland's resources, they betrayed the very people they were elected to represent. Instead of championing a vision of a prosperous, independent Scotland, they prioritised the survival of the Union instead. I Healey's dismissive remarks about transparency further compound his betrayal. He suggested that intelligent Scots could have figured out the truth about the resources if they had looked hard enough. This arrogance underscores the contempt with which Westminster treated Scotland's right to self-determination, even just basic democratic rights to know what's going on. The deliberate suppression of information was not just a political tactic, it was an insult to the intelligence and agency of the Scottish people. The complicity of Scottish Labour MPs in this betrayal is another layer of frustration. These were individuals who could have used their positions of power to advocate for Scotland's interests. Instead, they became instruments of Westminster's control, ensuring that Scotland remained subordinate within the Union. Their actions alongside Healey's admissions paint a picture of a system that prioritised the UK dominance over Scottish prosperity. Civil servants, politicians and even Scottish MPs played their part in suppressing Scotland's potential, denying its people the chance to shape their own future. This systemic betrayal demands reflection, and it demands action.
It's so beautiful. I feel I can't even explain this.
You must stop this.
I can't. I won't.
You know what will happen.
You need to join me.
No one's gonna take me alive. The time has come to make things right. You and I must fight for our rights. You and I must fight to survive.
Oh shit, I'm back on. Crap. I was enjoying that music too much there. Honest to goodness. We've got 14 people across in TikTok land. Welcome all. Yeah, it's definitely a tune, Julianne. I love that, you know. I saw Uncle Albert. Uncle Albert, why Scotland not taking it back? That's a good question. We're not allowed to have a vote. According to Westminster, we have to ask their permission to make a choice. And they've got us all thinking that way. Well, a chunk of us, not all of us. There are ways and means that we can go about demanding independence. Legitimising it would be difficult to do in the eyes of the world, you know, the opinions of other countries and things. It's inevitable, though, that one day we will be independent. We will be independent and in charge of our own resources, and we will become a beacon of love and light in the world and show the world how a small country can be run for its people as a positive example. That's how I feel. That's what I want for Scotland as a whole. And then we've got 31 people watching. That's 32 now. 32 people across in YouTube land. Welcome, YouTubers. Thank you so much. That's Julie, you're right there. Welcome, Julie Brown. So why didn't the SNP make something like this back in 2006? I agree with you completely. I think that it did do the rounds, it hit the papers, but because the media is particularly controlled by the union controlled media, the right-wing oligarchs, basically pushing up the Tories in Westminster and things. We didn't have the National back then. The National didn't come into any form of regular sort of like printing of the newspaper till 2014. So, or maybe it was 2013. Anyway, it certainly wasn't 2006. But to get this sort of information out there would be really difficult. We can do it now. We've got like some great independence creators. We've got like the two Davies. We've got the chap that does IndyCar. Gordon Ross? We've got lots of people that can put things out there. They've got lots and lots of people. We've got a great channel, Independence Live. You know, the community for digital activism is tremendous. But to put that out there a little bit more, it's up to you guys. It really, really, really is up to you guys to share this and to share it often. Okay? I call it 15 minutes of activism, and you should do 15 minutes of activism every single day for independence. And that's just as easy as sitting on a bus, going through Facebook and push and share, going on to YouTube and looking up Scottish independence activists, and basically copying the link for one of their videos and sticking it in your personal personal Facebook, or your Twitter, or your Blue Sky. These things make a massive difference. You know, it really, really is. Yeah, Kareem says it's just as easy as sitting on the crapper. 15 minutes of activism a day. If 100 of us did that, 15 minutes a day, sharing a dozen stories, or even 4 or 5, even 1, that's a lot more than what would have not happened if you did it. And then you just don't know who's going to end up watching that, listening to that, getting inspired by that, and moving forward with that. You know, the next leader of independence could be just sitting there waiting to hear something from the two Davies, from Gordon Ross, from myself, or anything that's broadcast on Independence Live. You know, we've got great bloggers as well. It's down to us to move forward. So look, you'd haven't thought Alex Salmon would have, but yeah, I would have thought he would have been all over it as well. I mean, it's most definitely a Radio 4 documentary, and next week I will be putting it out for everybody to listen to as well, which is pretty important. Anyway, let's get to a wee bit of a conclusion here. Where is my notes? Here they are. Right, so this whole story is uncovered from the Radio 4 documentary. It paints a damning picture of Westminster's actions during one of their most scary periods. Okay, and it's also ridiculous that it happened during one of our most pivotal periods in Scottish history, the discovery of oil in our waters. The evidence is clear though. Scotland was not treated as an equal partner in the Union. Instead, its people and resources were systematically exploited to stabilise a struggling UK economy. From the deliberate suppression of vital information about North Sea oil to the complicity of the figures who were supposed to represent Scotland's interests, the betrayal runs deep. David Walker's memos reveal a Treasury more concerned with appeasing foreign creditors and maintaining UK dominance than honouring Scotland's right to self-determination, honouring Scotland's natural resources. His candid admissions decades later show no remorse for the manipulation and the suppression that denied Scots the truth about their potential. The civil service, an institution supposedly neutral and dedicated to serving the people, became an instrument of Westminster's control. They planned the control. Then you've got Dennis Healey's admissions, which further illuminate this betrayal. His acknowledgement of Scottish oil's critical importance to the UK economy and his praise for Scottish MPs who actively worked against their own people's interests underscore the lengths Westminster was willing to go to maintain its grip. These were not acts of governance. They were acts of exploitation, perpetuating a narrative of dependence that kept Scotland tethered to the Union. Devolution, rather than being a step towards empowerment, was weaponised as a tool to suppress the calls for independence. When it was finally introduced, it came with limitations designed to maintain control. Devolution was not freedom. It was an extendable leash, granting just enough autonomy to placate demands while keeping the power firmly in Westminster's hands. The illusion of freedom was crafted to keep Scots from realising the full potential of what independence could offer. How does this make you feel? To know that your nation's wealth was used to prop up a system that deliberately denied you the opportunity to thrive. To realise that even now, that the same tactics of suppression and exploitation persist. The facts presented here are not just historical injustices, they are a call to action. This knowledge must serve as a tool to challenge the narratives that still perpetuated by Westminster. It's not enough to know the truth. We must share it. We must amplify it and use it to build our case for Scotland's future as an independent nation. This is not just about reclaiming resources. It's about reclaiming dignity, autonomy, and a future free of exploitation. And as soon as we come together as one movement rising above political lines, we will win this, and we can be proud of what we have fought for.
I can't get no sleep.
That's it. That's me talked about this. Go back, watch the videos again, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. They're about, I think, 15 to 17 minutes long for each of them. Share them and just send them out. There has been a few comments in the videos this week where basically people have said, why am I bringing up something that's so old and not relevant anymore? But it is relevant. It is totally relevant because it's still happening just now. And the whole plan of using devolution as a tool to suppress the independence movement, it kind of happened to begin with. And their fears of devolution becoming a voice for nationalism has happened. We're pushing forward. The SNP, love them or hate them, are the party that have pushed the boundaries of devolution. The Labour and Lib Dem coalition from before, they didn't push the boundaries of devolution. They didn't try new things. They didn't go out of their way to basically govern for Scotland, did they? They took their lead from down the road. And we've done videos on that as well. Just go and look at them. They're all there. Okay? But it's happening still. We're still being exploited. We're still being told that we're too wee, too poor, and too stupid to look after ourselves. I think that they're crapping it, that one day we will be independent, and then they'll prolong the whole discussion about it and the divorce settlement and blah, 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 blah. But there's international treaties in place for how that has to happen. It's not the same as Brexit. Nobody can ever say that, oh God, you saw how bad Brexit was. You know, how are they going to untangle 300 years worth of a relationship? Dead easy. Use international treaties and discuss it like adults. That's how I feel. They're there to be used. You know? Right. Have a quick look. Any questions? I missed one of, I think it was a Ruth question last week in YouTube land. I don't want to miss it again. Ruth, have I missed any questions across in YouTube land? Somebody please tell me if I have. Nope. I can't see anything there. And across in TikTok land. Hi Aaron, I never said hello to you. I'm sorry about that. And a few other people as well. And listen, thank you for everybody that's dropping gifts left, right and centre. I'm going to go into Discord after this and somebody's going to have to talk me through how to look up, how to see how much gifts we've got, because if we're, like I say, if we're hitting a tenner, we'll give that across to charity as soon as possible. Right. I think that's it. I think that's us done. So if anybody who's part of the Discord crew wants to come and join us, come and join us. If you want to join the Discord crew, you know what you've got to do. You have to send me a message on social media so I know that you're an independence activist. Okay? And then we'll get you in. Right? So we're done. I want to thank everybody across in TikTok land and especially everybody across in YouTube land for making it all remarkably cool tonight. We're growing in YouTube land and that's really important because it means the message is resonating and that's all I want at the end of the day. So thanks for watching. I'll see some of you in Discord and watch out for the videos next week. Take care. Have a great weekend. Why is that not playing? There it is now. It's playing now. Bye bye everybody.